Hello everyone and welcome to Financial Insight and to Financial Insight TV. My name is Clarence Chongo. We are here at AfricaWorks at Agora Village, and I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Chikoma Kazunga, who is the head of business development and new ventures at GreenCo Power Services Limited, which is a member of the wider Africa GreenCo group. Okay, and what we're discussing today is about the DRC Mining Week, which just closed off last week, and Dr. Kazunga was the GreenCo representative there. And so, yeah, welcome to Financial Insight, Dr. Kazunga.
Thank you, Clarence. It's good to be here with you.
Okay, so DRC Mining Week, I understand the theme was about celebrating 20 years of investment in mining in the DRC, focusing specifically on infrastructure and on energy security. The first thing I want to ask you is why GreenCo was interested in being found at the DRC Mining Week, if you please.
Sure. Thanks, Clarence. Yeah, GreenCo has been interested in the potential of the DRC market for quite a while now. And in fact, we're in the process of establishing an office there and getting licensed there to operate as an energy trader, much in the same way we operate here in Zambia, as well as Zimbabwe, South Africa, Namibia. And so our interest in being there was really to just get a better feel for the opportunity for a company like ours, to deepen some of the relationships that we already have with mining companies and other big users of energy there who have approached us in the past about potentially supplying them. And we were also there to more or less, announce our presence to some of the other stakeholders in the DRC who might not be familiar with a company like ours. So entities that are developing renewable energy projects, for example, because we could potentially be off-takers of the power from those projects, as well as other stakeholders in the sector that just aren't as familiar with GreenCo as entities in Zambia might be, for example. Okay,
so I understand that you did not specifically have speaking engagements at the DRC Mining Week, but nonetheless, you must have come away with some key takeaways. So what were the highlights for you? What struck you the most during this conference?
There were quite a few, I think, insights that we took away from the week we spent there. The first one, I think, for me was just how big that event is.
Okay.
I mean, it was a lot bigger than I expected it to be. It was very well attended. There were lots of international companies present.
Was it close to mining in Dawa?
Not quite on the same scale, but not far behind.
Okay.
Not far behind. Yeah, it was a very big conference, very well attended, lots of big players there, all the big names that you would expect to see at an international mining conference were present. A lot of other stakeholders in the industry were present. Companies that support the mines had a large presence there. So it was, my first takeaway was, this is a pretty big event. And I'm glad we were there. The other big insight for me was really understanding firsthand just how much power those mines need. Got to speak to a lot of mining companies who are operating in the DRC and got to hear from them just about the challenges that they face in getting enough power to sustain their operations. And the challenge for them is not only obtaining power, but it's also getting it at an affordable price. And for some of the companies, they also have an interest in ensuring that the power that they're getting is sustainable. And so that's another objective of the mining companies operating there. And then I think the third big takeaway for me was there is certainly a need for a company like Africa GreenCo to operate in that space. There's right now no one is really aggregating different power generation sources, and then offering that power to large users on a basis that is allows them to, not put their balance sheets at risk, right? Right now, most of the mining companies that are operating there are doing most of these power generation projects on their own balance sheet. And what we can do as Africa GreenCo is come in, offer them a contract for power that they don't have to recognize on their own balance sheet, right? And that's a big advantage for them. And that's an opportunity, or that's the role that we can play in that environment.
Okay, which leads me nicely to my next question, which is about some of the conversations that you might have had at DRC Mining Week. From what you've just explained, it seems clear that there was a lot of scope and opportunity to actually strike some deals. And I wonder whether you made any connections and contacts that could lead to deals in the future.
Yeah, I'd like to believe we did. We had a lot of discussions with mining companies about their power requirements.
Yeah.
Not only their immediate needs, but also their power requirements over the next 2-3 years. I think one of the exciting things about the DRC mining industry is they're just, in a sense, getting started. It's a very richly endowed country from a mineral standpoint, and they're going to be mining there for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the mines that we spoke to have life of mines of 40, 50 plus years. And so they have power requirements today, certainly, but they also have power requirements over the coming years that are just going to continue to grow. And so one of our objectives is to establish a relationship with them, is to establish ourselves as a potential supplier, is to get them familiar with how we operate, what our business model is like, how we mitigate risk for them, and essentially put ourselves at the front of their minds when it comes to looking for power solutions for their operations. Then the other objective of being there was really to also introduce ourselves to other players in that space. There are companies that are developing solar PV projects, for example, or hydro generation projects, and looking for off-takers. And so one of the objectives that we had was to let them know that we're going to be in this market, and we are a potential off-taker. We can basically de-risk their projects. We can allow their projects to attract the finance that they need in order to get built by being a credible, bankable off-taker of that power. And what was interesting to me is at least from the discussions we had with stakeholders there, there is no one doing that in that market at the moment. And it's also a concept that not too many people were familiar with. So I think it was important for GreenCo to be there to, introduce ourselves to the market and to explain how we can perform this role, this function in the market in a way that benefits not only generators but also consumers of power.
So there's potential there for you to disrupt that market clearly, which kind of leads me to zoom out a little bit and just look at Africa GreenCo and GreenCo Power Services Limited, what your business model is. I imagine that for some people, they hear GreenCo Power and they think, oh, maybe they sell solar, etc. So can you just explain what it is that GreenCo does?
Yeah, sure. Fundamentally, GreenCo is a supplier of power to large users of electricity. And we do that by buying power from generators. And we also have the ability, because we're a trader on the Southern African Power Pool, to buy power from the market, wholesale power from the market. And so we're I think people call us a trader, a renewable energy company. There's lots of different ways to describe what we do, but fundamentally, we supply power to people who need it, and we do this by buying power from renewable energy producers. Our mandate, of course, is only to purchase renewable energy, so green electrons. And this is power that otherwise wouldn't come onto the market because this is power that needs an off-taker.
Yeah.
And because of the unique way in which we've structured our business, and because we're seen to be a creditworthy, bankable off-taker, those projects can then raise finance on the strength of an off-take agreement with GreenCo. And so it's a nice way to ensure that renewable, clean electricity is coming onto the grid, and that it will be supplying the grid for the next 20 or potentially even 25 years, thanks to offtake from us. And then our job is then to find buyers of that power in the market.
And I've heard you use the term off-taker several times. Some of our viewers might probably not know what that means. Can you just clarify who's an off-taker? What do they do?
Yeah, if you're building a power plant, you need to raise finance to build that power plant, and that usually means you're getting debt from a lending facility, so usually from a commercial bank. But you're also getting equity investors to put their money into that project. And they will only do that if they're sure that somebody is going to buy that power, and that somebody is going to buy that power on a long-term basis. And that person is in the industry, that's what we call an off-taker.
Okay.
So someone comes in and says, don't worry, I'll buy all your power for the next 10, 15, 20 years. And that way, you can be assured that you can pay back your loans, you can pay back your equity investors, and you can be a profitable generating plant, thanks to the agreement that we...
So basically, the off-taker guarantees business for the producer for a foreseeable or determined amount
of time.
Right. Okay. And you've caused quite some notable disruptions, I think, in the Zambian energy market by striking some serious headlining deals. And I can imagine that you probably want to do the same in the DRC. Can you just articulate for us some of the deals that you've struck so far in Zambia?
Yeah, I think what we've been able to do in Zambia over the last year or so is we've been able to facilitate the either the import or the generation of new energy, new electricity in Zambia to help alleviate the energy crisis that the country has faced. So we've done this in two different ways. One is we've working with ZESCO, working with First Quantum Minerals, working with Stanbic, we've been able to facilitate the import of a significant amount of power that has been made available to Zambian consumers to help alleviate the crisis that we've been in over the last 12, 15 months. And then we're also the off-taker of power from the new 100 megawatt Chisamba solar PV plant. And by acting as the off-taker, that allowed the plant to complete the financing that it required in order to reach commercial operations. And we are then making that power available primarily to First Quantum Minerals, but it is available for use in the Zambian market. And that's really what our company has been set up to do, whereas we want to be able to bring new clean generation online in the markets in which we operate. And I'm pleased to say that in Zambia, we've started on that journey, and we are fulfilling our mandate and our mission in this market.
And how do you see the future of energy and around the business model that you operate shaping up? Do you see more players doing the kind of thing that you do? Because to my mind, I think you are quite unique in the market, being the only company that I know of that strikes these kinds of deals. How do you see this market and that segment of the market evolving in Zambia and in the region?
I think we're going to see a lot of growth in I guess what you could call the energy trading space, and a lot of growth in the types of deals that we've been able to do. GreenCo has really been a pioneer in this space.
Yeah.
And GreenCo is, while there are companies in South Africa that do what we do, for example, and there's also companies in Zambia that are now starting to do what we do. We were the first company, I think, to really highlight the importance of being able to do this on a regional basis. And it works quite well in this part of Africa because there is a wholesale market for power, which is the Southern African Power Pool.
Yeah.
And GreenCo, I think, very early on identified the potential of this wholesale market to not only promote the deployment of additional renewable energy resources, but to also mitigate risk for all the participants in this, all the electricity sector participants in this part of the world, by taking advantage of the fact that we can trade power with each other, right? So I think GreenCo has really highlighted the importance of that market, while at the same time, through the sort of offtake structure that we have, we've made it possible for renewable energy projects that we're looking to reach, to get to deployment stage. We've made it possible for those projects to actually move forward. Okay,
and let's talk a little bit about the Southern African Power Pool, or SAP. So my understanding is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you should be able to buy power from any point in the region within the pool and deliver it to any other point. How does that actually work? Just for example, I could buy power from Mozambique and deliver it to CEC. How does that work?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That's exactly what the power pool allows members to do. You have to be a member of the power pool in order to be able to trade on it, and there's certain requirements that need to be met, of course, before one can become a member. But the idea is really, you know, every country has a need to be able to import power at certain times of the year, or to export power if they have excess.
Yeah.
And as long as we have interconnectors between ourselves, it's quite easy. It's quite easy to do that, and by doing that, we not only lower the risk that we won't have enough power or that we can't sell our power, but we also strengthen improve the overall resilience of the grid, because we can shift power around to where it's needed from areas where maybe there's an excess of supply, and thereby keep the grid in balance. So it's, you know, power pools are a feature of most electricity, are a feature in many places in the world. The Southern African Power Pool is probably the most advanced power pool in Africa, but there are similar power pools in West Africa as well as in East Africa, and I think in time, you know, with the new interconnector that's being built between Zambia and Tanzania, we're going to be able to merge or connect the East African Power Pool and the Southern African Power Pool, so we'll have one big, you know, SAPP/EAP power pool, which again is just going to improve resilience, hopefully lower costs for everyone, and allow countries to take advantage of opportunities to import power or to export power.
Okay, and interconnector, another term that you mentioned, what does that mean? Does that simply mean grid lines across the border, or is there something more special to it than that?
It's as simple as that.
Okay, yeah. Great.
It's as simple as that. It's basically extending your grid from your own border into your neighbor's border, across your neighbor's border, so that power can flow through those lines. You know, there's technical requirements that need to be met to ensure that you can do that safely and efficiently, but essentially that's all that is.
Okay, and in closing, let's talk about the green in GreenCo. GreenCo, African GreenCo as the group in the region, in the southern region of Africa, and GreenCo Power Services as the subsidiary company within Zambia. Why the green? Because that implies that you won't touch anything other than renewable energy.
Yeah, no, I think we have a mandate from our shareholders to really facilitate the deployment of renewable energy resources in this part of Africa. And I think if you look at the landscape here, there is certainly a need for more renewable energy. It's power that can be brought onto the grid fairly quickly, so it can help to address the energy challenges that we have right now. It's also power that can be brought onto the grid fairly cheaply, so it's a fairly low-cost form of power. And we see a niche for ourselves in facilitating the deployment of that type of power. That isn't to say we don't need other forms of power. I think there is a need for baseload power in many of our markets. We have, in the Southern African region, there's lots of gas which can potentially be used for electricity generation.
Especially in Tanzania,
In Tanzania as well as Mozambique, and I think Namibia is close to potentially becoming a significant gas producer. Angola.
Yeah, okay.
So there is the potential to develop those resources and to produce power from them, but there's plenty of players that can do that. Our role, our niche is to really facilitate the increased adoption of renewable energy, the increased deployment of renewable energy, and that's what we're going to focus on.
Okay, and on that note, Dr. Kazunga, I would like to thank you for joining us here at AfricaWorks at Agora Village in Lusaka.
Thank you very much, Clarence. Appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Dr. Chikoma Kazunga here. He's the business development head at Africa GreenCo and GreenCo Power Services here in Zambia. And it's been a pleasure learning so much from him. My name is Clarence Chongo for Financial Insight. Get to know.